Good evening. Our top stories tonight. The NFL awards have been announced who the finalists are going to be, and Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver, is a finalist for the MVP, which is historic because this just really doesn't happen. It's a quarterback award, and we know Justin Jefferson's probably not going to win the MVP, but in reality, what Justin Jefferson has done this year, has done last year, the year before, Justin Jefferson might not be the 2022 NFL MVP in terms of the vote, but he is the MVP of the NFL. We also have the coaching searches heating up right now. Sean Payton out in the cold. Sean Payton probably going to end up back at Fox. There just does not seem to be a job for Sean Payton right now. Instead, it looks like Dan Quinn to the Arizona Cardinals might actually be the first head coach domino to fall. Now, the Denver Broncos are still in on Dan Quinn. They're still interested, but it seems as though he's the third candidate in their mind. David Shaw, the former Stanford Cardinal head coach, he seems to be the front runner due to his relationship with Condoleezza Rice, who is part of the ownership group. And we also have DeMeco Ryans, who we just kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen with him and the Denver Broncos because the 49ers are playing in that NFC championship. We also have the Carolina Panthers, who actually listened to me. They decided we're not just going to go all in on the young gun. It seems as though they've switched their tune. Now they're looking for more of a veteran coach. Frank Reich is the leader in the clubhouse for the Carolina Panthers job, though Steve Wilkes still in the running, and Kellen Moore, who, while he might be a young coach, 34 years old, would make him the youngest head coach in the NFL. He's more of a older soul, more of a Sean McDermott type where doesn't say a whole lot, but knows what he's doing. So those are the three for Carolina. We've got the three for the Denver Broncos. We've got the two for the Arizona Cardinals, Dan Quinn, and of course, Brian Flores, still an option there as well. Things are heating up. And in Indianapolis, we're going to have 7 head coach candidates. 7 for the Indianapolis Colts, though Jeff Saturday remains the favorite. They really want Jeff Saturday in Indy. At least the owner does. Jim Irsay wants Jeff Saturday. His employees and those close to him are saying, Jim, no, you can't hire Jeff Saturday. Don't do it. We'll see if Jim Irsay listens to reason, and we'll see what's going on across the NFL on Player Profiler Today. Well, awards were announced today. We got all the finalists for every award. And I want to start with the Offensive Player of the Year because this kind of makes things obvious for Offensive Player of the Year and the MVP. For Offensive Player of the Year, we've got Patrick Mahomes, who is the favorite to win MVP. We've got Jalen Hurts, who probably would have won MVP if he didn't get hurt. We've got Justin Jefferson, who is the MVP of the NFL. And then we've got Tyreek Hill. Now he's in there for Offensive Player of the Year. Tyreek Hill is not nominated for the MVP. Instead, we've got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow joining Jefferson, Mahomes, and Hurts for the MVP nomination. So this pretty clearly rules Tyreek Hill out of Offensive Player of the Year, and this pretty clearly rules out Josh Allen and Joe Burrow for the MVP. It's down to Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Jefferson. And now MVP is a quarterback award. It just always goes to a quarterback. It's just what the NFL does. But what about the Offensive Player of the Year? Will they do the right thing and give the true MVP, Justin Jefferson, the Offensive Player of the Year? Or are they just going to say, well, Jalen Hurts, he's the second best quarterback, so give it to him? I hope they do the right thing. I wish Justin Jefferson would be taken seriously for the NFL MVP of 2022 because let's face it, he's the MVP of the NFL. Justin Jefferson is the best player in the NFL, barring position, bar none. Justin Jefferson, best in the NFL, most valuable in the NFL, because when Justin Jefferson struggled, the Vikings as a team struggled. And what Justin Jefferson has done through 3 years is just absolutely historic. So this year, 9 receptions more than Tyreek Hill, the number 2, 99 yards more than Tyreek Hill, who was number 2. So just completely shreds Tyreek Hill this year. And then when you look at all time, the 6th most yards all time by Justin Jefferson in a single season this year, and he fell off towards the end. It was a disappointing end of the season. He could have broke the record had things gone better against the Green Bay Packers, but it just didn't happen. So he's 6th all time in a single season, but through 3 seasons, Justin Jefferson has 662 yards more than Randy Moss, who was the record holder for the most yards through 3 seasons before Justin Jefferson blew him out of the water. He has 3 more receptions than Michael Thomas through those 3 seasons, but Justin Jefferson has 1,038 yards more than Michael Thomas on just 3 more receptions. So Justin Jefferson, he is the most yards, he's the most receptions, because he is just, simply put, the best. For years, we knew Aaron Donald was the best player in the NFL. Didn't matter position. Aaron Donald is just so dominant. Best NFL player. That crown is being passed to Justin Jefferson, and we get to watch history in real time. Because entering his 4th season in the NFL, he is already 6th in yards through 4 seasons, and he's only played 3. So for Justin Jefferson to pass the players that are ahead of him, based on his 96.5 yards per game, if we use that average, which some games he'll get more, some games he'll get less, but based on the math, Justin Jefferson will pass AJ Green and Jerry freaking Rice for most receiving yards through 4 seasons in just 1 game next year. And then it'll take 3 games till he passes Torrey Holt. And then it'll take 6 games until he passes Randy Moss. And it will take 8 games before he passes Michael Thomas. Half a season is all it will take based on what we've seen Justin Jefferson do throughout his career in order to be the best receiver of all time through 4 years. Justin Jefferson, at every stop, at every stage of his career, is just setting records. Justin Jefferson is the best player in the NFL. Justin Jefferson is the MVP of the NFL. Moving on to the rest of the awards, though, Defensive Player of the Year, we're down to 3. Nick Bosa, who's the favorite to win the award. He's most likely to win it. Micah Parsons, he had it, but fell off towards the end of the season thanks to injuries to Anthony Barr and Leighton Vander Esch. They had Micah Parsons playing more off-ball linebacker, and so we lost it. Nick Bosa can be the Defensive Player of the Year. Third in line, though, Chris Jones, who just tip of the hat to Chris Jones, interior force for the Kansas City Chiefs, just an absolute weapon on the defensive line, plays mostly on the interior, but on passing downs, he will kick outside as well and just destroys offensive linemen. So glad he's finally getting the recognition because Chris Jones has been underrated year after year after year. Now, Comeback Player of the Year, it's Geno Smith's award. We know it's going to Geno Smith. Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, they are nominated as well. They're going to be the runners-up, but Geno Smith, Comeback Player of the Year. This has been something that we've known all season long. Now, Geno Smith, he's coming back from being written off. He's not coming back from an injury like Saquon Barkley is, like Christian McCaffrey is. But hey, this is an award with no clear definition. And so Geno Smith, he deserves it. Just give him the award. One of the most efficient quarterback seasons we have seen from a journeyman backup. Geno Smith deserves it. And Geno Smith, he is going to be the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks next year. I know I've said this plenty of times, but John Schneider, the general manager of Seattle, he has come out and he has agreed with me. Geno Smith going to be their quarterback. They will re-sign Geno Smith. If they can't come to terms on a long-term deal, and by long, I mean 2 to 3 years, they'll franchise tag him. Geno's back in Seattle. That's a fact. Moving on to the rest of the awards, though, Coach of the Year. It was initially announced that there are 5 finalists, but then through sources like Ari Myrov over at the 33rd team, we find out that 2 of them have already been eliminated, which is just, I don't know how this happened. It was very strange, but Sean McDermott, Nick Sirianni, they were part of that initial 5. They've both been cut. So it's Brian Daboll, it's Kyle Shanahan, and it's Doug Peterson as the final 3 for NFL Coach of the Year. I don't know who they're going to give it to. They could give it to any of them, really. Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers with their winning streak. And if we're factoring in postseason, people will give it to him because of Brock Purdy. But if we're not factoring in postseason, Doug Peterson sure as heck could get it because they went from worst to first. And then Brian Daboll resurrected the Giants. So I don't know who it's going to be. This is going to be a fun one. I can't wait to see who gets it. They all truly deserving of it. But coaching's overrated anyways. Assistant Coach of the Year, it's down to 3. We've got DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, who's going to be a head coach likely this year, likely for the Denver Broncos. Still waiting to find out, but he's probably going to win the award. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, he's the only one that could unseat DeMeco Ryans, but I don't think it's going to happen. And Shane Steichen, he's in there as that third option for the Philadelphia Eagles. And sounds as though he did not impress with his interviews. Shane Steichen was the favorite for the Carolina Panthers job. Didn't really impress in the first round. And so he might not even get a second interview for the Carolina Panthers. Rounding things out with the rookies, we all know who the final 3 are for Defensive Rookie of the Year. It's Sauce Gardner, it's Tariq Woolen, and it's Aiden Hutchinson. One of those 3 we knew all along was going to win the award. Now it's official. It's down to those 3. So congrats to Sauce, who's going to win the award. But Aiden Hutchinson and Tariq Woolen sure gave him a run for his money. And the Offensive Rookie of the Year, no Chris Olave. Chris Olave got snubbed here. Disappointing. Really, really. Why not just go 4? Why not go 4 nominees for Offensive Rookie of the Year? What Chris Olave did, especially at the start of the year, when Jameis was slinging it to him, and Andy Dalton was kind of airing it out too, Chris Olave was carrying that offense. Chris Olave deserves to be nominated, but he is not. Instead, it is Garrett Wilson, who should win the award. Probably going to win the award because it's a regular season award. Brock Purdy, though. The fact that Brock Purdy has carried the San Francisco 49ers this far, and if the postseason is factored in at all, it's going to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy will deserve it. And then there's Ken Walker. He's the third option. Ken Walker's not going to get it, but still, very deserving players this year for all of the Rookie of the Year awards. Many, just all the awards, lots of deserving candidates. And speaking of deserving candidates, there are plenty of deserving candidates across the NFL and plenty of jobs up for grabs. We've got 5 head coach jobs, multiple coordinator jobs. We're waiting to see where the dominoes fall. And as we said earlier, Dan Quinn to the Arizona Cardinals might be that first domino to fall. It could happen. It might have already happened by the time this show airs. Have to keep checking my notifications to make sure that it doesn't break while I'm recording this show. So Dan Quinn, flown in by the Arizona Cardinals last night to interview with the team. Now, there are conflicting reports. Some say that the interview was last night. Some say that the interview was last night through to today. And some say, no, he was flown in last night. The interview's today. There's been no update on Dan Quinn leaving the Arizona Cardinals. And a lot of people think that Dan Quinn isn't going to leave. The Cardinals will say, hey, you are our guy. We want you. Dan Quinn, please be our head coach. You are a player's coach. You'll be able to relate to Kyler Murray while also getting him focused. Because Dan Quinn, he's not going to take no nonsense at all. Very serious coach, but also very understanding, very loved by his players. So Dan Quinn to the Arizona Cardinals might be the ideal fit for Kyler Murray. And we'll see who he brings on as his offensive coordinator too. But that's kind of what we're expecting to happen first. We all thought we were waiting for Sean Payton to sign with the team. And then once that happened, then we'd go from there. And it seems as though Sean Payton is just completely fallen off. There's not a job for Sean Payton out there. We reported, several others reported, and we just followed suit, that Sean Payton was going to receive a second interview from the Denver Broncos. That hasn't materialized yet. They still haven't scheduled him. And so was Sean Payton the one leaking that? And the Broncos were unhappy and decided, no, we're not going to do it now? Or I don't know what happened, but Sean Payton left out in the cold. And so the Denver Broncos, in the meantime, Denver Broncos are going to have two finalists. It seems Dan Quinn's still in the running to be the Denver Broncos head coach, but seems he's third. David Shaw, the former Stanford Cardinal head coach who worked with Condoleezza Rice for years in recruiting. Condoleezza Rice, who worked for the Bush administration, she is a Stanford grad, and so she would help with recruiting for David Shaw. Was at a lot of Stanford Cardinals games with David Shaw. They know each other very well, and there are rumors that the reason the Denver Broncos coaching process is so slow is because one of the Waltons is out hunting and they want to wait until he's back before they do interviews. Don't know if that's true or not. It's only been reported by one source who later backtracked. I didn't confirm it. So we're giving you all the context there because it's a conversation that's being had. I don't think it's actually the reality of it. Either way, though, Condoleezza Rice figures to have a heavy hand in the decision, which makes David Shaw a candidate. And the other one is D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans pulled himself out of the Minnesota Vikings head coaching candidacy last year. There was 4 candidates for the Vikings head coach job. D'Amico Ryans said, nah, I'm going to come back for a year. I'm going to get a little bit more seasoned, and I'll try again next year. And next year may be with the Denver Broncos. Now, there's still the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, they showed some interest in Sean Payton to start the head coaching cycle. We haven't heard that he's getting a second interview. All we know so far is that the Panthers have pivoted. Now, we see from Josina Anderson reporting that, all along the Panthers wanted a veteran coach. Really? Because they didn't interview a ton of veterans. They interviewed Steve Wilkes. They interviewed Sean Payton. They interviewed, they interviewed Frank Reich. Sorry, my mistake. And they interviewed Jim Caldwell. So there's 4 of these veteran coaches. The other 8 guys were all young. And it is reported also by just Josina Anderson that they wanted an offensive guy. And we knew that based on all of the interview requests that they had, from Ben Johnson to Shane Steichen to Kellen Moore to Mike Kafka. Just every offensive coordinator under the sun was basically requested for an interview by the Carolina Panthers. But now we know that Frank Reich is the favorite, and that in that first interview, they talked a lot about who would fill his staff if Frank Reich is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Now, we also still have Steve Wilkes, who is in the running. He's receiving a second interview. And maybe if Reich is hired, Steve Wilkes ends up sticking around. And the third candidate, who we haven't heard that Kellen Moore is receiving a second interview yet, but his interview was yesterday, and he's still in Carolina today talking to them. So I don't know if that constitutes an official second interview, but Kellen Moore is the one young coach that we know the Carolina Panthers are interested in. But it seems like it's Frank Reich's job to lose for the Carolina Panthers at this point. And I would just like to say, well done, Carolina Panthers. Clearly, David Tepper tunes in to Player Profiler. He uses the website, looks up all of the advanced metrics, because he's a smart guy. David Tepper, very smart man. So he's using Player Profiler and all the advanced tools we have, scouting all of the athleticism. That's why they got rid of their former coach. And all of a sudden, Terrace Marshall starts booming, popping off because he's athletic. And David Tepper gets that. And so he wants to hire a coach that will maximize it. And so David Tepper clearly listening to Player Profiler Today, and here's me talking about why in the world have you decided you want a young offensive guru, the next Sean Payton, just photocopying the photocopy of the photocopy? And so David Tepper listened. He's now decided that, we're going to go with, we still want the offensive mind, which I don't begrudge them at all. I understand wanting to stick with an offensive coordinator who is going to keep the scheme consistent year after year, because so many times the next Sean McVay has to be hired and you end up losing Ben Johnson. That's the nice thing about the Detroit Lions, is Dan Campbell can call plays, and he does. So when they lose him, it'll help that Dan Campbell can do that. Helps that they also have a quarterback coach who played in the NFL, so he'll probably be the logical replacement for the Lions. But you don't have that problem if you hire an offensive guy. And if you hire Frank Reich, you know you're going to get some stability, which Carolina Panthers kind of seem like they need. I know Matt Rule was there for 2.5 years, and it just never felt stable at any point. Just quarterback cycling. And that's very much the same thing that Frank Reich had with the Colts, but that wasn't his fault. He did pick Carson Wentz. That was Frank Reich's fault. That is 100% Frank Reich's fault that Carson Wentz came to Indianapolis and it didn't work out. And that's why he got fired. But outside of that, it's not his fault that Andrew Luck retired and Jacoby Brissett was his quarterback. It's not his fault that they decided that, Phillip Rivers, you're probably retiring after this year, but hey, let's pretend it'll be a 2-year thing. We'll sign for 1 year and maybe he'll come back. Oh, Phillip Rivers is gone. Well, I guess we got to find a new quarterback. Matt Ryan, not Frank Reich's fault. Sam Ehlinger, not Frank Reich's fault. I can't remember if Sam Ehlinger started a game under Frank Reich or not, or if they made the transition to Jeff Saturday at that point. But no, they did. They did, because Jeff Saturday's first game was with Matt Ryan. Sam Ehlinger, not Frank Reich's fault. Frank Reich gets the blame for exactly one thing, and that's Carson Wentz. The rest of it, he did pretty good. Frank Reich did pretty good, making do with what he had. So we'll see what happens with the Carolina Panthers and some stability, which is what they need. I think that's it for the... Oh, no, sorry, that's not it. That's not it. I wish I could forget, but the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts have interviewed everyone. Anyone and everyone. If you were a former head coach in the NFL, you have an interview with the Indianapolis Colts. Except for Jim Caldwell, because he was fired from there. But everyone else gets an interview with the Indianapolis Colts. If you're a rising star, you get an interview with the Indianapolis Colts. If you are just a solid candidate, if you're an Aaron Glenn who is known as a rising star but had an up and down season with the Detroit Lions, you've got an interview. If you're Rich Bisaccia, who is an interim head coach, special teams coordinator, you've got an interview. Colts interviewing absolutely everyone. And now for second round of interviews, there are 7 candidates. And that has me worried. It truly does. Because Josina Anderson reporting that they want Jeff Saturday. Jim Irsay, who calls the shots because he owns the team, wants Jeff Saturday to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Ballard and many others who work for Jim Irsay are telling him this isn't a good idea. He won 1 game and it was against the Raiders. We can't do this. The fans aren't going to buy in. Did you see the offensive line quit at the end of the year? Jim, please don't make us hire Jeff Saturday. And it's not even just the staff. Apparently, it's Jim Irsay's friends trying to tell him, don't do this. Don't make this mistake. So, Jeff Saturday is one of 7 candidates. The other candidates, pretty good, though. Dan Quinn is a finalist for the Indianapolis Colts unless the Arizona Cardinals don't let him out of the building. Still haven't had an update on that. Gonna have to keep checking, though. So, Dan Quinn's a finalist. Ejiro Evero is a finalist for the Denver Broncos. Defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos is Ejiro Evero. He's a finalist for the Indianapolis Colts job. D'Amico Ryans is expected to be a finalist for the job, though that can't be announced until after the championship games have been played. And Raheem Morris has been announced as a finalist for the job. So still waiting on 2 more. Dan Quinn, Ejiro Evero, Jim Irsay, D'Amico Ryans, Raheem Morris. Waiting on 2 more. We'll find out. We'll update you who those are going to be. And we'll keep you updated on the Dolphins defensive coordinator search too, because Vic Fangio is the favorite. He's meeting with the Dolphins today, and it's going to be more than just an interview. They're set to offer Vic Fangio the job, but he's got options. Vic Fangio is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL right now. If Wade Phillips decides to come out of retirement, it would be between the 2 of them, but Vic Fangio gonna be back in the NFL. It's just a matter of where. If they miss out on Fangio, they might go with Sean Desai, who was a disciple of Vic Fangio, ended up getting promoted to safeties coach after Fangio left under Chuck Pagano with the Chicago Bears. Or they also interviewed Chris Richard, the co-defensive coordinator for the for the New Orleans Saints. He's also the secondary coach there. So lots of moving pieces across the NFL. But what about this weekend? What about the games that are about to come? Obviously, we're going to be previewing that more later in the week, but day one, it's Wednesday, first day of injury reports. And so we get Patrick Mahomes, who is practicing. And they said that he was going to do pretty much everything. Now, that means limited, of course, but Patrick Mahomes with the high ankle sprain, we didn't know if he would practice this week at all. Comes out day one, Patrick Mahomes practices. That's a good sign for Kansas City. He was always going to play, but the more that Patrick Mahomes can practice throughout the week, the better him playing becomes. As for the opponents, left tackle Jonah Williams, right guard Alex Kappa, both do not practice today. Jonah Williams, of course, dislocated his knee in the first round of the playoffs. Jackson Carman steps in last game, plays pretty well against the Buffalo Bills, though they really lack the pass rush prowess of Chris Jones. And George Karlaftis has come on towards the end of the season. Frank Clark's a veteran. So that'll be another test, because I don't expect Jonah Williams to play. There's a chance Alex Kappa can get ready off of the ankle injury, but I don't see that happening either. It's probably going to be Max Sharping once again, and he's going to have a test with Chris Jones on the opposite side, Defensive Player of the Year finalist. Now, over in the NFC, Jalen Hurts asked how he's feeling, and he's felt better, but it doesn't really matter. You got to go get it done. Just Jalen Hurts, all business. And I saw a tweet earlier today from an Eagles fan where they're not even enjoying this season. It's just they have to win. It's just anxiety that they have to win and they can't lose. And just it's stress at this point, and it's actually going to be a letdown. They can't even be excited about the wins because it's going to be a letdown if the Eagles lose in the Super Bowl or don't win the Super Bowl. Come on, man. Come on. It's football. We're all fans, but you have to enjoy the wins. I predicted before the season that the Philadelphia Eagles would be there in the Super Bowl, but most people didn't. Most people did not. And so when they do make it this far and are this good, you just have to enjoy the ride. Coming from a Lions fan, enjoy the freaking ride. Jalen Hurts, he's enjoying the ride. He's all business. He's ready to play on Sunday against a 49ers offense that might be without Christian McCaffrey and might be without Elijah Mitchell. Both of the running backs, Elijah Mitchell, CMC, both did not practice today for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey has the calf injury, and we have a groin injury for Elijah Mitchell. Both out of practice. We'll see as the week progresses. But remember, Kyle Shanahan said they were both day-to-day, which means they are week-to-week. Could be looking at a Jordan Mason, Tyrion Davis-Price, and Tevin Coleman backfield against the Philadelphia Eagles. And if that's the case, good luck to the 49ers. I know running back isn't the most important position, but that drop off from Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell all the way down to Tevin Coleman and Jordan Davis and Tyrion Davis-Price, not Jordan Davis. I'd love to see Jordan Davis at running back. Love that. Jordan Mason. Also, Jimmy Garoppolo not going to return to back up Brock Purdy this weekend. There's a chance that Brock Purdy will be backed up by Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl. If they make it that far, they won't make it that far. But if they do, Jimmy G might be available, but he's not back this week. He's not back next year. We'll see where he ends up. Could be the Raiders, could be the Buccaneers, could be a lot of teams, could be the Commanders. Jimmy Garoppolo going somewhere outside of San Francisco next year. That'll bring us to the rest of the news around the NFL, though, where the Arizona Cardinals might actually keep DeAndre Hopkins because they're putting out feelers and they're only getting day 2 picks in return for DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins for a 2nd round pick, for a 3rd round pick, because usually if they say day 2 pick, that means it's a round 3 pick. Because if it was going to be a round 2 pick, they usually specify that. So day 2 pick, round 3 pick for DeAndre Hopkins. What's the point in doing that? I know the Arizona Cardinals need to acquire assets, so maybe with a full rebuild, but $19 million for DeAndre Hopkins or a 3rd round pick in exchange, you may as well just keep Hopkins. Maybe you trade Marquise Brown instead and try and get a 1st or try and recoup what you traded for him. Regardless, sounds like DeAndre Hopkins probably going to be back. And if he's not, the Ravens are and the Patriots are definitely interested, which of course they are. Bill Belichick has long respected and long been a fan of DeAndre Hopkins, so that might become awkward if they trade for DeAndre Hopkins because Bill O'Brien is now the offense coordinator. And Bill O'Brien and DeAndre Hopkins didn't exactly see eye to eye. But we'll see what ends up happening there, and we'll see what happens with the New York Jets ex-receiver, wide receiver 2, 3, whatever you want to call Corey Davis, because it's looking like Corey Davis is going to be a cap casualty. The Jets are $2.5 million over the salary cap right now. And so if they just cut Corey Davis, that will put them that'll put them well ahead of the cap. $10.5 million for Corey Davis. So that'll put them $8 million under the cap. They'll be back in the green just by cutting Corey Davis. And they can save even more money. Dwayne Brown, they can cut him post June 1st and save a lot of money there. $9.7 million. Or they could keep Dwayne Brown and restructure him. Braxton Berrios, they can cut him post June 1st and save $5 million. Though, going to be tough to see them cut Berrios and Corey Davis, but Jets got to free up some money somehow. They do have other options, though. They can extend Carl Lawson. They can extend or restructure John Franklin Myers on the defensive line, DJ Reed at corner, or CJ Mosley, the linebacker. Or they could restructure Lack and Tomlinson, the guard that they just signed. Lots of ways to save money for the New York Jets, but Corey Davis getting cut seems like the most surefire based on what he's done for the Jets and the injuries that he's had. He's fine. He's okay, but Corey Davis probably going to be out of New York in order for Aaron Rodgers to arrive, and then they'll add some talent around him, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft, whether it's both. It's not just going to be Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, and Denzel Mims. There's going to be more added for Aaron Rodgers to play with instead of Corey Davis. And that will bring us to the tool of the day, which is, of course, our favorite segment each and every day. And it's Wednesday, and it's draft season, which means it's time to explore the NFL Mock Draft Index because things are happening. We've said how many times now that Will Levis is rising on draft boards. You don't have to like him. I like him because I trust Cody Carpentier, one of the finest football minds of our generation. And Cody Carpentier says Will Levis has the traits that teams are going goo goo gaga over. And we continue to hear that. Cody was on it first, but then we hear it from Mike Renner. We hear it from Ryan Roberts. And then we start hearing it from Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks and Mel Kiper and just all of the draft gurus after Cody for months and months and months told us that Will Levis was going to be very highly drafted, if not quarterback one, in the 2023 NFL draft. And sure enough, you can find out yourself. You can play with it yourself. You can check out CBS. They've got Will Levis going number 1. You can check out ESPN. They've got Will Levis going number 7. They've got Bryce Young still going number 1 overall. Bleacher Report. Well, they don't have Will Levis, so they must not have done one recently, or they're completely wrong. And then you look at Player Profiler, and Will Levis going 13th overall? That doesn't seem to make sense. Well, Cody, when he did his last mock draft, he's not doing based on what Cody would do. He's doing what he is hearing, what he's expecting to happen. Cody's got a new mock draft coming out tonight. It might already be out by the time you are watching this video. And I'm sure as heck that Will Levis is going to be going higher than 13th overall. We'll see if he's even going first overall. But the point is, with the all-in package from Player Profiler, you get the NFL Mock Draft Index. So you can track for yourself who is going where across the league, how valuable do different websites think that these prospects are. And you can use the Dynasty tools. You get the DFS Dominator, get the Dynasty Deluxe. You get so many tools, all the tools that I have access to with the all-in package. So sign up today. You'll get it the rest of January free. And then going forward, 12 months of just the best football information that you can get your hands on. And that's why you follow Player Profiler. You get the inside information that Sean Payton is out. Will Levis is in. All of the ups and the downs of the NFL, we are here to bring you that 7 days a week at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out PlayerProfiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.